One of the things that that's one of my icebreakers for my clients is like, what's
test check.
what's the superpower? Like, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Yeah.
Which is great. I think great icebreaker for anybody, because you kind of get like where they're coming from. I had 2 clients back to back say that they wish they had the ability to like understand and like read something and understand anything. Like read quantum mechanics book and you have a full working knowledge of that.
Like Limitless with
Yeah,
Cooper.
like basically Limitless, and like mine has been always to like conjure up daily sandwiches. That's always been like my go-to.
Rocks. I'm a sandwich boy.
Yeah.
If Subway had a platinum card, I'd be like on the list of people.
It can be any sandwich. If
I'd
you
be
want
like
filet mignon,
I would be like Jerry Seinfeld, like the first person who got the black card. That would be me with Subway if they had that.
I worked at a Schlotzsky's for 9 years, so
I got a whole backstory
you're
about.
kind of stepping on my turf here.
Well, this is my power.
It's just because Subway is close to work. If I had to pick a better sandwich, I would, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to fuck up a sandwich if you ask me.
But have you had Chiba Hut?
Yes, it's incredible. Oh my God,
isn't it? I've turned on clients that every time they come in, they order Chiba Hut for us.
Is your tattoo shop over there?
I'm right across the street from Doc's Records.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
so it's a little studio. But yeah, daily sandwiches. That's my power. I got a whole backstory. So I'd be doing a. This is totally off topic.
It's great.
But this is how we're starting it.
Yeah.
So I'd be doing a food drive. I'd be doing a food drive.
Scott
right?
is the captain now.
I've been doing a food drive with like the president's son, right? And I'm doing the good with the world. I'm just making sandwiches. I'm like, Reuben, right? And then meatball sub. Okay, it's
You gotta make the noise every time.
Right? And then then out of the corner of my eye, I see an assassin, right? And I see the little bling of the sniper rifle. So then I go like that, and I conjure up 100-year-old sourdough bread that I put in front of the president's son and saves him from the sniper bullet. And then that's when I realized that my powers aren't just for food, but they have offensive and defensive capabilities.
Okay, but then there has to be like some sort of like threshold point where you're like, in the X-Men movie when Rogue gets hooked up to that thing by Magneto, and that's the thing that makes her hair white.
Yeah.
Like you're up there, and we're like, we need 4,000 BLTs, and you're like,
Yeah, that's the biggest question. And also, if I would be
throwing it's too much.
If I would be
You're pushing him too far.
Too much sourdough.
Completely kidnapped by the government, and then be like, well, now you're just in charge of feeding all the troops because now we're going to save money on the deficit or something.
Okay, but you would be a huge threat because your ability to conjure up, even if it is one very specific meal, if you were able to do that for free whenever you want, they'd be like, this guy's a fucking problem.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They'd take you out. They'd have to take you out.
This was part of
They
our
either
conversation.
weaponize you or take you out.
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah, I could cure world hunger as one guy, and I'm just like,
they can't have that.
I'm just the whole time, and they would totally, I'd ruin the profit margins for so many companies.
And then to throw it back to the same movie, then you end up in that weird clear plastic jail cell at the end of X-Men, like Magneto, but still conjuring up
piled high with sandwiches.
Yeah, there's just sandwich, like just never stopping.
Yeah, I'm gonna get out of here one day.
And then the president of Jersey Mike's like comes to you one day, and you have your Hannibal Lecter moment. Like,
oh yeah. my process this is that the Hulk has to eat. I mean, he's consuming so many calories. If they're out there kicking ass, saving the world, you come back to the little plane thing. I don't know the X-Men plane stuff.
Helicarrier.
The what?
Helicarrier.
They're going to be hungry because they just expend a whole bunch of energy. So I'm just there in the back being like, I made sure the plane is good. Here's like how much? Here's a foot long, several. And then Bruce Banner just chows down. So.
And then if you learn mixed martial arts, then you get to be like Steven Seagal in Under Siege, providing food and kicking ass simultaneously.
Frozen salami that I throw, and it just like.
I was thinking of like making nunchucks out of some bread.
Oh yeah, it would get quite ridiculous. So okay, sorry about that. You can
don't apologize.
It sounds like a new comic. It sounds like the next one, really.
But you said it on our podcast, so we own it.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's how that works, I believe.
Damn it.
Yeah.
No. Don't apologize, but we are going to jump into this real fast, Mike. It is Saturday the 17th? What, the 18th? What day is it?
It's a day.
I believe it's 17th.
17th.
Oh, it's the 17th.
18th.
Okay, 18th.
18th, yes. That's where we're at.
Clearly, we're all killing it.
We
Like,
know it. We know where we're at and
We have
everything.
our shit
what time
together.
it is and the date.
I at least know where I am right now, so that's important. What's new on the shelves this week?
Well,
this is our first episode recording video inside the comic book shop.
Yeah, where
I'm
we're
really
at
excited about
is Collected Comics and Games, 2823 Altamira Drive, Fort Worth, Texas, 76116.
it. And just in case nobody knew, the
Our
official
sponsor.
sponsor of the Panel Boys podcast.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So that's where we're at. Yeah.
Oh,
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the
yeah.
table.
Fancy. Yes.
what's new on the shelf this week that is exciting to you?
This week was Absolute Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Absolute Spider-Man last year was probably
Wait,
like
Ultimate?
It's called Absolute?
sorry,
Absolute.
Ultimate.
Oh.
Ultimate.
Absolute
sorry.
Batman.
DC's doing the
Absolute Batman number 4 was, but Ultimate Wolverine. Sorry, they're the same. They're the same. They're the
I
same.
mean, it is.
Okay,
It's
I
the
mean,
fucking same.
they're the same, different kind of universe thing. Whatever.
Are there like
Anyways,
spies in I feel like there's spies in each other's companies. Like, hey, they're doing Absolute. We should do something.
I mean, kinda.
Kinda.
Since Ultimates did so well, DC was like, "Oh yeah, absolute. Let's do that.
Okay.
That sounds great."
Reboot everything.
How can
Yeah.
we make Batman's costume stupid as hell?
Ooh.
I think it's cool.
I don't. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't-
I think
the
it's
battle
cool. All
axe is
right.
cool.
No, I mean, it just.
So we're
it
just
is-
gonna argue the whole time. Is that what this podcast is?
Sometimes.
about?
Yeah. It depends. Yeah, it really depends. Yeah.
Anyways, what's on the shelf?
Ultimate
Ultimate.
Wolverine.
Okay.
Yeah. So like Ultimate Spider-Man was Marvel's #1 last year. So with that, they're like, well, let's do Ultimate Wolverine.
What's the premise of Ultimate Wolverine?
Did they cover up his face? Is that what
Yes.
it's all?
Yeah.
So pretty much they're making the Winter Soldier, like story Wolverine,
Okay.
and the
Okay.
Maker is the one that's kind of corrupting him.
So this is like Weapon X. Like they're like.
Yeah, it's
He's
Weapon X
he's a
still,
soldier.
but Winter Soldier as well because they're doing the whole Russia thing. Magic, Omega Red, Colossus
Okay,
are
hold on.
working for the Maker,
All right, that
and they're the
sounds-
one. Yeah, they're a team.
sounds
They're the
fucking
bad guy
cool.
team, and he pretty much was sent to the X-Men on a mission, and he kills like 2 people,
Okay.
2 like dominant mutants. That
Oh, damn.
you're just like, wow.
Is-
And that was the start of the whole.
Is one of the people that he kills an annoying piece of shit?
No.
Oh. Well, okay. Now I'm mad.
Yeah, it's actually like a fan favorite. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, a fan favorite. I was kind of sad about it, but it's the Ultimate, so like, who cares? It's not canon. It's its own little universe. So
Yeah.
it just helped the story, and it was badass. Just Wolverine just being a badass, just killing things.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I feel like I'm gonna pick that up when I get through the stack of 60 comics that I haven't read yet.
Yeah.
So I picked up half of my pull list today.
Yeah.
I picked up half of it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I've left comic book stores for less. I didn't pick up anything. I didn't pick up my pull list for like 6 weeks. And when Mike told me what was in there, I was like, yeah, dude, the last time this happened, I was so embarrassed. I just never went back.
You're not the only one that's done that though. It
I
happens. a
know.
lot.
It happens.
a lot.
I felt bad about it. But when
Yeah.
I got here, I was like,
I can't do that to Mike. Damn it.
all right, split this up. I'll get half of it now and half of it when I get
Oh,
paid
yeah.
again in 2 weeks.
I thought this was because of like because of Diamond. I thought this was like a. Like
Oh, that's a whole other thing too.
Then
No,
not.
that is a thing, but
Yeah.
no, I didn't make my way to the store for like a month and a half, and
Oh, okay.
I had signed up for a whole bunch of new books. So when I got here, Mike pulled out my stack, and I was like, "Oh Jesus Christ!"
Oh, that's the worst. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when it's that big, and you're like, oh.
Well, I
wasn't-
think it was a lot of December. December was a heavy month for
It was.
comics. Like there was so much. December.
and December was the
Busy.
busiest month of my entire life.
a lot was going on.
Yeah, it was crazy. What else is on the shelf, Mike? What else
Right
is new?
now we got Aquaman came back.
Okay.
He has powers now. Like Mara has the water powers, how she could create stuff and make weapons out of water.
What do you mean he has powers now?
Well, new powers. The new powers of water
Okay.
forming, like fucking Avatar, like fucking Airbender, only water.
What like
bending.
Does
the
water
fucking
get
Wonder
hard?
Twins?
Like-
Like
What do you mean?
Conjuring
Like
the water and like
manipulating
shooting the water?
Yeah, like he can make
Oh.
swords out of the water.
Like Moses?
Well, he could also do things separate that too. Yeah, he's Moses.
Is this just a metaphor?
DC's hottest comic book, Moses.
Moses Mariner.
Oh yeah.
I'm not reading it. I'm not reading that shit. Pass. But so yeah. Anyways,
The Old Testament is going to be 400 issues.
A lot of words. A lot of words.
a
A lot of narrative too. There's just exposition the whole time.
And this is a wordy book. But the variant covers are dope. So
Could you imagine variant covers for the Bible?
I would. I'd
That'd be
fucking buy
about.
'em, dude.
They
I
need to
would-
get into that.
Yeah,
I'm
that'd
pretty
be sick.
sure the Christian bookstores got them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I've seen the illustrated
Well,
version of the
alright.
Bible.
but they don't
it doesn't
have-
look as fun. I'm gonna tell you
I
that.
bet not.
I was gonna say they don't have Jim Lee, so I mean,
That's what I'm saying. I want to see some like just.
They should do
artists
the
on
Ultimates
there.
version of the Bible though, where they just give everyone new backstories, and it's like aliens. Oh wow!
Oh, you said it on our show. We own that now.
Damn,
I'm
this
just
is
be,
nice.
I'm gonna be throwing ideas out all the time. Then.
This is great. So yeah, Aquaman, and it leads into all the absolute universe stuff too, because he finds this pearl that was in all these other Aquaman books you should have read already. Like it referenced like 3 other books, and no one really reads Aquaman anyway. So to even know about these books was like, damn, you're on your shit. But there was this pearl that turned into a gate, that turned into the Omega sign, like dark side, and then that's how it ended. So it has a tie into all the absolute stuff, which is kind of cool.
Do you think there's a mother box in Atlantis?
Maybe. But there's not. But it's not even a mother box thing anymore. Darkseid has become like a planet. He's like a thing. He's like a Mother Nature. He's like a entity in his own universe that he created.
Jeez, I'm so behind.
It's so much. Yeah, it's so much, dude.
I don't know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Well, DC's fun though. They've
I-
really like they're having fun with what they're doing right now, which is kind of cool.
I enjoy that, and I used to be kind of a stickler for continuity, but since they've rebooted 8 times in the last 15 years, and most of it has been unsuccessful, I kind of like that they're finally just like, fuck it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Continuity doesn't matter at all. Like,
And they're doing just a lot more cosmic stuff too. They're not trying to be all grounded and Gotham, Metropolis. Like they're going all out.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
going all
well, I
out
mean,
in
you say that,
space.
but there are like 12 Batman books
Well,
on the shelf right now.
Those are the grounded ones, and then everything else is like crazy town.
Batman's been good though. I love Chip Zdarsky. I think I say that every episode, but that's one thing I've been reading for a while. Since we're 15 minutes in, Mike, why don't you introduce our guests here?
Our guests here, they are comic artist Scott Prather. Did I say that right?
Prather.
Prather.
Yeah,
Prather. We should have gone over that before.
It's-
Scott Prather and Andrew Calvert. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. He's the writer for Hiraeth. And we're going to get into that here in a little bit.
I'm very excited. This is going to be a good episode. I'm also really excited that we're set up in the comic book store today.
Oh yeah,
It's
it's
definitely a different vibe. And it's cool.
immersed.
Yeah.
It feels, it really brings you into what we're doing here, because we recorded in the back room for a couple episodes, and it's just white tables and bare walls. I don't feel like it gives you the
No fun.
atmosphere that you're looking for.
Now this is like being in the bar after hours. Like you got to know somebody
Exactly,
to,
because this
to
is
be here
this is after
and
hours.
hanging out. But yeah, we're real excited to be here and talk to you guys.
Hell yeah.
I think we have a lot of fun stories and hopefully some unique perspectives. At least in our experience. It seems
Be sure to
be-
stay on top of your mic there a little bit.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Damn.
And so
Yeah. There it is. He's going to say that like 5 more times.
Okay, well,
So just hold
I
it here.
project enough, so I was
Yeah.
hoping that was what I was
Yeah.
going to do. But yeah, we're just really excited. We've had a lot of good experiences. We were just talking in the car on the way here that just in this past year, since MegaCon of last year of 24, and we're going to MegaCon in Orlando in a couple of weeks, that there's been exponential growth and just for our stories and for our goals. To get into comics, and then because I say that, and then everyone says you're making comics. I was like, well, yes, but also I would like to have a nice little publisher logo in the corner of my comic. I think that sounds like a super cool deal.
Yeah.
And would give us the legitimacy that we're looking for. Even though we are doing this for fun, and that's how it all started, was for fun. And even if we never get published, we will finish the story because we believe in it. But we just want to have kind of. I just want to start walking around with big boys,
Rolling with the big dogs.
Yeah, that's all I want to do.
So how'd this story come to be? How'd y'all come to start to work on the comic? What was the idea like?
Before we get into that,
Okay.
jumping ahead here a little bit,
Sorry.
I did want to start out by asking you guys, as a writer and an artist, where did you get started? Like, what was your avenue into comic books like originally?
I've been a lifelong reader. I started reading when I was probably 6, 8 years old. My older brother read a bunch of comics, so it was the Spider-Man, X-Men, Age of Apocalypse, Maximum Carnage were my jam. Once I got into middle school, I read what was it? Planetary, Powers, Fables.
More adult stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
were the books that really kind of blew my mind and like showed me. I was like, oh my god, this medium's awesome. You can do anything in this thing.
Yeah.
And
So I guess like the second wave of Image was a little bit less extreme, and actually I would say a little bit more like character driven, but also definitely like Fables is one of my favorite books too. Like the Vertigo is just incredible.
Yeah, Vertigo did a lot.
yeah.
Vertigo did a lot just for the medium, just in general, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, I mean, they put at Borders in Burleson where I grew up when I was in middle school, and even though I started out with pretty run of the mill, superhero books, that's also where I would find, I mean, opening the door to like Watchmen and stuff like that, but eventually getting into things like Hellboy and other, I guess, I don't know if Dark Horse is considered indie. They're kind of
Not anymore, but
they're
they
kind
were.
of like a heavy hitter at this point,
Yeah.
but still like stuff that's maybe not so mainstream, if you will.
Me now?
Yeah.
I think Andrew was probably more into comics. I like in high school it was Hush. That was a big thing. There was the Hush, Jeff Loeb, and I picked up Kingdom Come when I was like 11, and that was basically the only comic for me. Like it was seeing Alex Ross's stuff. So my original copy of that is the most dog-eared thing that I have, and just read it just all the time. So I didn't do a lot of exploring outside of kind of mainstream stuff, and even then it's kind of all circled around DC for the most part, just for no reason, but that's just what it was.
Yeah, I gave him a stack of Marvel books for Christmas this year, just
Yeah.
trying to get him caught up.
Yeah, trying to expand the horizons a little bit more, and then just more topical in the past 4 years is when, as an adult, I came back to it. And so a little bit of my backstory. I got sober 4 years ago, and then along came that with I had a lot more time on my hands and more money because I wasn't spending everything at the bar. And then so that's when I was like, I'm gonna go to comic book stores again. And that's when I really got heavily into it. Was the past 4 years, like 20, 21, 22. Those were, I mean, I told Andrew how much I spent before, and I should never have told him how much I spent on comic books. And so I have, my entire front room is floor to ceiling bookshelves now. And so I just got really into it a lot more as an adult, and like James Tynion and Jeff Lemire. And kind of like those, I guess, the new round of writers, a lot of it.
Yeah.
And then exploring a lot of the older stuff, Garth Ennis, and like I have like a lot of Vertigo books, because that's where you just get to some really interesting storytelling, and then a lot of foreign comics. That's where my interest lies probably the most, and where I get the most inspiration for our book, is a lot of the foreign comics, and I think it's because that those the Italians and the French. And all the other countries over there, they've had centuries of storytelling. So I feel like it's ingrained in their culture more.
Yeah.
And then America is like the Michael Bay of storytelling. We're just like loud and brash and very young comparatively. And so you see a lot of that in American writers versus writers from different countries. And so there's just a really fun nuance of story that I just love, and what I'm trying to bring to our story, because it did start off as a storybook and now into like an actual comic book. So, into comics now a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, we talk about James. I always say it wrong. Tynion. I always want to say Tinian.
I think it's Tynion.
Tynion.
I've heard the people at Scott's Collectibles call it Tynion, so
It is Tynion, but that because I said it wrong for so long, that sounds incorrect.
I think
to me now.
Tinian sounds better too.
It does.
Yeah.
It's the why, damn it.
He's
Yeah.
one of my favorite writers working right now. I mean, I enjoyed the stuff he did on Batman, but I really got into what he was doing when he was working on Justice League Dark, the second run. But especially when I found Something Is Killing the Children, I was like, this is one of the
So
best
cool.
things on the shelves right now.
Oh yeah, that's why it's
It's incredible.
one of the
Now,
top
Nice House
comics.
on the Lake was one of the best first issues I think I'd ever read. I was like,
Yep.
it was that first issue. I was just like, oh my gosh.
That's what got me back. It was Nice House on the Lake, and then the Tom King, Mitch Gerard's Mr. Miracle.
That was a good book.
Very
That
good.
one like blew me away, and that was like the first year I got sober, and that's what started, I think, me going down this very expensive house.
Tom King, I think, does have kind of a pass-fail rate, much like any other writer or artist. But there's very little that I've read that he's done that I didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
We talk about him a lot on the show as well. Well, I mean, as a writer, like, you know, getting into more like alternative or, you know, maybe less hero-driven stories, like growing up as a teenager and stuff like that. Like, what kind of stuff inspired you as a writer? I mean, if you could point to anybody in the...
I mean, Brian K. Vaughan was kind of my guy for a long time. Bendis is, you know, the way he writes dialogue. I know it's kind of kitschy at this point, and everybody has an opinion about it now. But I mean, when it came out, it was kind of mind blowing. But Brian K. Vaughan is one that I've always kind of gone back to as somebody who's just who has a story start to finish, sticks the landing on like every time. It was, I mean, I read Paper Girls last year.
Paper Girls is great.
Yeah, and I read it like once. I waited till it was in the compendium, and I read it, and like it was nearly brought to tears by the end of that thing. I was like, God damn it, Brian K. Vaughan doing it again.
I only read the first like 2 trades, I think, but that was like I had like an Image fever there for a little bit, you know, when it was like Black Science, Paper Girls.
Oh yeah.
East of West, and a couple other books that were out at the time, but Brian K. Vaughan I couldn't agree more. But I guess to add to what you're saying about Bendis, I mean, he is kind of, I mean, you couldn't get more. Most people who don't read comic books or are passive fans still know his name, you know, just because he's been associated with some pretty big stories. But I didn't know for the longest time that he was an indie darling until he started writing Ultimate Marvel in the early 2000s.
No, Torso, Goldfish, all those books. I read those years ago, and they blew my mind. And it was just anybody. I'm always drawn to good character work, good story structure. I mean, I'm a stickler for continuity, so those things. I mean, that's why I kind of gravitated a little bit away from, you know, the main universes as I got older, just because I just want a contained story and something that's well constructed.
Yeah,
That's something you want to think about over and over. Where did this happen? And when? Oh, did that affect that? Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets old. It does.
Especially, I mean, I read some of the, you know, event books or crisis books and stuff like that when they come out, but I've never been much for. I don't want to read 40 issues to finish a story. You know what I mean? All of the spin-offs and one-shots and stuff like that. I mean, some of those things are fun, and I'll pick them up. I do like a good 6-issue run of something.
It used to be an event, right? Like every 4 years you would get a big event. Now it's every, you know, quarter it feels like.
Oh yeah, every summer, every winter you'll get a big event. That's just how it goes.
$5 a comic.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, that kicks you in the ass.
They add up, man.
Just to bring it down a little bit for you guys.
No,
you know. So I think with what Andrew is saying about his inspiration for writing was so not just comics. I know Andrew and I have a big shared love for movies, and so a little bit about us. We've known each other since college. So 2007, I think, is when we first met in college. And I only had 1 year at the school that he went to until I failed, and then chose some other options. But in that 1 year is when I mean, it was every week jam packed with just, you know, college adventures, and then a love of comics.
Yeah, it was. We everybody hung out at a buddy's house, and that's where he read comics. We were all reading comics at the time, and so a lot, you know, and a lot of that young creative energy. And so that's kind of where this idea kind of stemmed from. Is it was an idea that was born like, you know, probably 15 years ago. Yeah. And it was just, you know, because we'd always talked about making comics and everything. And then I don't really even know how. I think you approached me with, you had an idea for, like, you wanted to tell, you were doing some paintings or something. You were working on something, and you wanted to do the idea of the 5 stages of grief and personified by different characters.
Yeah, something like that. I know it started off with The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger, where before the movie came out, they did an alternate reality games, right? So so I literally stayed at home on the computer. Andrew and a buddy went to Dallas, and then I would read clues.
Yeah, it was like a promotional campaign it was a promotional game tied in with the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, like there was a website that like had hidden stuff.
Right, and I think they like they revealed the face of the Joker and everything.
It was like the coolest. I mean, I was at home, but I was on the phone to these guys, and they're like running through Dallas parking garages, and then at the end there's like all this swag and Gotham newspapers and stuff about Harvey Dent. It was just a really cool experience. And so being young and in college, we did like the Assassin's game, you know, where you you get 20 kids and then you squirt them with water and stuff, and that was really fun. So I was like, what if we made like our own alternate reality game? And this is before QR codes too. So I was like, we could do graffiti with the website that would take you to a thing. And so I think that was essentially the start of this idea. And then we would use the characters of grief to like direct the whatever story we would eventually come up with along. So it was a very loose idea of using grief and the stages of grief personified to tell a story. And then I eventually went to an art school, and then I was like, well, I'm going to do this for my senior thesis. And then that never happened. So, I mean, it's taken the time to get here where, where I'm stable enough, to be able to put the time effort into it. And then Andrew's written it in like 3 different times. I think like because it was first a storybook, but probably about 5 years after the initial idea, where I was going to do like illustrations, and then have long prose. So yeah, it took many different iterations, and always like when I was still drinking, there would just be like talk at the bar, and I've always wanted to. I'm one who really wants to follow through when I say I'm going to do. So when I met my wife 9 years ago, I told her, I was like, I'm going to make a book one day, and so this is kind of like, I told you. I told you I was going to do that.
Remember when I said that?
Yeah,
It was a while ago, but we're doing it.
I said I'm going to do. So it's been a really long journey to get here, but I think it's happening at the right time, for us to actually do something with it and not just sit unmade or sit unfinished. We see this going somewhere, even if it's just us finishing it. We still think it'll go somewhere with it. So we're just very excited about the whole adventure, and we've had a lot of fun getting here. So I don't know if you want to talk about some of our adventures so far, or
I was just
segue into some question.
I guess to add on to what you were saying, when we talked at Weird Wednesday a couple months ago, we talked about the writing process a little bit, and I also we had a failed launch of recording this episode earlier in the week and had to figure out some technical issues, but we talked about Words for Pictures, which is the book. Words for Pictures?
Panels to pictures, pictures to panels, something like that. Yeah, Words to Pictures, I think.
Yeah, Brian Michael Bendis' book, he has a lot of different samples for comic book scripts from different writers, and he talks about the Marvel method and this and that, but seeing samples from different comic book writers, people who are pretty prolific in the industry, it was almost, I don't want to say shocking, it was really surprising to see that like nobody really does it the same way. There's different ways to go about it, especially depending on like who your collaborator is and if you have a history with them, or if you have to kind of walk it backwards a little bit and do things a little bit more traditionally in terms of a comic book script. But had you mentioned that like the scripts were formatted a little bit more like screenplays in the beginning?
Yeah. So let's see. So when he initially approached me with this idea we wanted to write a storybook. I'd kind of started writing it out in prose and everything, and then we pivoted from that, and I wrote a very long or loose script just because we had talked a lot about how Scott wanted to draw the book, because it was, I mean, I'm not an artist. I was happy just to work with somebody. I've always wanted to make a comic book, but I'm not artistically inclined. So I was like, whatever I can do to assist him in this process, in his process. And so I had written a version of the script where it was just the dialogue, no real directions on panels or anything like that. And it was kind of inspired by the Marvel way, just being like, here's a loose story and see what you can do. And then what we kind of learned was that, and he can speak to some of this too, is that I think it was very daunting because there wasn't enough kind of direction in there. And that was just me being naive in how I was writing as well. But it was, I think, because we went out to, we had a meeting with Tony Harris once, and we kind of showed him a little bit of this, because we were in this impasse area where he was getting frustrated and I was kind of getting frustrated, and we were having a hard time figuring out how to collaborate with each other. We were just speaking different languages. And so But when Tony kind of looked at it, he's like, no, you're not providing enough direction, and he's getting lost in his head because he said like artist brain and writer brain are two separate things, and I think that was a big thing that helped like click between us. And so from there I started being much more conscious about page layout and panels and everything else, and being more descriptive about the actions in the panels, and we went towards a more kind of traditional writing script like that.
Yeah, I think there was he made like a general outline so we got all the story points together, and then we'll touch on Tony more later. But having Tony read it, because it was Andrew was either giving like no direction, and it was just like this is like this is what happens in the scene, or he was giving me like it could be this way, or it could be this way, or it could be this way. And when you're given like 5 options, when I'm trying to compose the scene in my head and the angles right and what to show on the panel, and I could do it all these 5 different ways, that's too many options. That's too many things to think about, when Andrew just needs to be like, this is what happens, it's from this angle, and then it's composed this way. And that's how we've kind of landed on it now, where he's a much more direct in it, and then also learning, and this is left over from the screenplay aspect of things, when you walk into a room, you go to the fridge, you grab a Coke, you sit on the couch, you watch TV. That is not one panel,
Right.
And we're not going to have a book where it's just like where it's just like a ghost of someone doing all those things, right? Like we've seen that in comics before.
Yeah.
That can be used like once, but like not every
whole
page where you're
Right.
just kind of following that.
It also gets confusing depending on like how complicated the motion is in
Right.
like
Yeah.
And that was something that I just had to learn as well. And it was, because initially I thought I was like, okay, I'll give him a lot of different options here, and he can make, because he's going to be the one that visualizes it. And I think that was a mistake in my writing process, was that I need to be more direct and make the choice, and then he can just focus on the composition of the actual image. And I was like, well, I don't know what's the most interesting gesture, because I don't really think thinking visually and training myself to start thinking visually was one of the bigger challenges, because it's like, okay, well, what is the most interesting action in I walk in, I grab a Coke, I open the fridge, and I sit down? Which of those actions, tells the story best? And so once I started thinking about that more, we started gelling more, and it just kind of started clicking. But that was, because I thought I was doing him a favor just kind of by describing like, okay, yeah, we're going to come in here. But it was, and once once we started communicating better, he was like, no, it is overwhelming. I was like, oh, I could definitely see how that could be overwhelming.
Well, it's like, for you're a comic book fan, you read comic books all the time, and you sit down and you think about it, you have the ambition to try to create something, and you're like, well, this is fucking child's play, right? Like, well, I can draw some pictures or whatever. And then you start to think about like layout, motion, direction, and you're like, oh my god, like this is
It's
so
the hardest
hard.
thing I've
It's
ever
so
done.
hard.
I mean, and it was like, again, I think I went in, I was like, okay, I'll just like Stan Lee and just do this the Marvel way and just really loose scripts. And now my scripts are much more Alan Moore-esque, where it's just lots of detail and then like one line of dialogue. So it's,
that's been very helpful. And we're both like noobs. We have never. I did like a 2-page bit in college, but nothing.
You're getting far from your mic.
Nothing actually concrete. And so this is our first time. And then Andrew has the metaphor. I'll let you say it. The plane.
Oh, well, yeah, because again, we spent so much time in pre-production, and we were talking about, okay, well, how can we do this? And we were doing he was doing lots of different layouts and character sketches and all this stuff. And then finally I was like, we can get stuck in pre-production hell for the rest of our lives. I was like, we just need to start something. And so we were building the plane as we're flying it is what we've been using as our metaphor.
That's exactly.
And this first issue took us so long because I think he was experimenting with different art styles. We got halfway through the issue, and then he decided he's like, I'm going to redraw everything. And I was like, okay.
And I did.
Yeah. And it was, and every choice and every speed bump we've come across, though, has made the book better. And we've learned so many more lessons by just doing it. This first issue was very challenging, but we have learned so much from just the process of doing it.
Oh yeah, the second issue where we're on the tail end of finishing, we got done in 4 months' time versus you know, 16 months or something.
Yeah.
It was light years better. Learning how to communicate again was a big part of it on how we would work. So
that also goes back to the point that you're making, though, is that, you know, you do. I think when you're writing, you are catering it to your creative collaboration, like understanding, you know, how Scott wants to work and how I want to work, and we were, you know, and finding that gel, like, because I've read a lot of different comic book scripts, and ours don't look anything like any of them.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Like you're just creating something, and we change the words all the time, and so our process right now is I'll write a script, and then we get together, and we spend about, you know, 8 to 15 hours just thumbnailing it out. And I'll sit here acting. We go through it panel by panel, and he'll rough out the page. I'll be like, you know, and I'll show him an example of what I thought the page layout would be. But again,
it's so much thinking.
But
Sounds like it.
It is all frontal lobe.
So we do a whole day of just acting things out, and he's kind of. But then it's so fascinating though, because again, he's got a visual mind in a way that I just don't understand. So, you know, I'll sit here and be like, oh yeah, I imagined, you know, this is a long, you know, a long rectangular panel, 2 squares, and he's like, yeah, but let's do this, and this, and I'm like, yeah, that's a lot better.
Yeah, that
like,
one day is where our two minds meet, and we can finally like see progress in the storytelling as a visual format. And so we learned that on the tail end of this issue. We did like the last 6 pages we did this way, because again, being such a, you know, naive to comic book making, you know, I was like thumbnailing a page and then drawing it and then thumbnailing a page. So like the first, you know, 17 pages were just done one at a time by myself, and as a novice, like sitting there scribbling compositions and without having someone to bounce ideas out with. It took way longer, right, to even just to get the thumbnailing part done. And so this result has made issue 2 and then the next issue 3 just so much faster, and you
get to see it's also nice to thumbnail everything out, because you can see the whole issue as one.
You're supposed to do that. Did you know?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, you're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
No, I've been.
But these are just. I mean, we're saying all these speed bumps because I'm sure anybody who's listening who may be interested in making comics just learn from all of these mistakes.
Yeah.
I was actually really interested to dive into some of this because I myself would like to be able to create something someday. But, you know, like you were saying about your really long stage of pre-production, you have that there's a level of fear, there's paralysis by analysis, and I mean, to a certain point, and the only reason I could be able to relate to this is having worked in some like short films and doing comedy for a while, is that sometimes you got to kill your babies and figure out how to just get it out the door and make it be the best version that it can be, and, you know, use that as a learning experience to move on to the next thing, which is a really frustrating thing as a creative person to be like, because you could redraw it 3 times, but at the end of the day, like, the best version of it in your mind might not actually exist.
Yeah.
In a weird way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and especially for our first time out of the gate, there's no way that this would be up to standards that we would want to see. But
with that being said, though, having read the first issue, I was really impressed with some of the panels. There's a lot of depth, and there's like some really dynamic panel work in it. That because, you know, for those who have not read the first issue, and I highly recommend it, the concept of moving into, there's kind of like a looking glass, like fantasy world element to it, and with that, you know, that sequence of, you know, passing from one place to the other has that page, those 2 pages specifically, I think were really interesting and impressive, especially for someone who is, I mean, this is your first crack at it, and I know it's taken you a long time. You know, it's taken you all a long time to get to this point, but I mean, that's just, when I was reading it, I was really impressed with the artwork and the story and the way that y'all put this together.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm so very proud of this end result. But the issue 2 is like that's when things are better all around.
This is very much so a.
We'll throw some visuals right on the screen there, maybe a little teaser of some panels and stuff. Yeah,
this is very much a prologue issue. I mean, we had talked. Yeah. We had lots of talks. I mean, the initial issue, because we had talked about making it just a graphic novel, and then we pivoted again and went back to issues, and there was
How many pages was the first draft?
well, this one was probably supposed to be a double issue, and so then we pivoted back, we cut it back, scaled it back.
It's like 36 pages.
Yeah, it was I think it was like 42.
Wow.
Yeah, it was 36, 42.
For your
issues.
first time out, you don't want to see 42
That's a lot.
pages.
Well, it was, but
this will never get done.
yeah, we did scale it back just to give ourselves a more realistic goal, but
be finished.
yeah, but this is very much so a prologue issue, and
Yeah.
then leading into issue 2. So, but again though, that was just again to manage the workload of just creating an issue.
Well, it's
Yeah.
also I think to a degree, and I wish even some more prolific artists would kind of stick to this shit, because longer is not always better, and I think that there is definitely a discipline to getting your story across with the specific beats that you need to hit within a 22-page format, which is fucking hard.
22
Oh, yeah.
pages, Andrew. You hear that?
No, I
22
didn't even know that.
But I mean, there's some of these, like, I understand like prestige books come out, and sometimes it's cool to read something that's 40 or 50 pages or whatever, like, but those are never contained. It's always like, okay, each issue is going to be 50 fucking pages,
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
guys.
But it
It'll take 3 years to get there.
But
Yeah.
it happens. I mean, Image does every now and then. They'll their number ones will be long boys. I mean, there'll be a lot to
yeah,
read.
but
on
I
number
mean,
one.
what is the DC Black Label?
Oh yeah, those are
Yeah.
But that's why they make you pay more too.
Those are long in the tooth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They are.
But like I was saying, like they're same thing with like writing an episode of TV, or even I wish not every movie has to be 2.5 hours long.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm tired of that shit.
Yeah, there. I mean, it was but going back to what you're saying, just restructuring everything, just to have so that each issue has a rise, a fall in action, like you are, and then pacing it out. Like that's as we've started going more towards the 24 page or whatever it is issue or page, whatever we're doing now. I'm like, okay, we got 8, and that's, I was like, I got, 3 big scenes here or whatever it is, or 4, and I'm thinking very much so about page count and page turns and all your reveals and all that. But it was very, so I'm trying to focus more on making each issue its own episode. And that's, it's a totally different way of writing. And I've had to restructure a lot of the story because again, it was, we've changed how we thought we were going to tell this story in multiple different facets.
There's a guy I watch on YouTube whose name I don't know, but I've been, and we talked about Brian Bendis's book. It was probably the 5th thing that I bought when I was like, oh, okay, I finally found something that's actually speaking my language here. I mean, because I literally bought like writing comics for dummies, and then I was like, okay, I'm not that fucking stupid. Like,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that
that
bottom denominator right there.
Yeah, that Bendis book was it's a great book just because you see so many different types of scripts in that book. He has so many different little examples of how people write for different artists, and he has different. You can see that he's writing differently for different artists,
Right.
and it's just he has a shorthand with Malieb that he doesn't have with Finch or whoever and whatever it may be, and so, I mean. That was, I was like, okay, that took a lot of stress off of me, I think, as the writer, and then I was like, let's just dive in here together and just make it.
Well, you talked about page count, page turn a second ago, and that's something that it's not like I never noticed it. I mean, obviously, like your big reveals at the end of you don't want the big reveal to be 2 pages before the issue's over.
Right.
Well, I mean, you could use that for, different types of plot devices, whether or not you have like an A, B, or a C story happening simultaneously, but that's not something that I necessarily would have considered until I was watching someone like really lay it out. This guy teaches comic book writing at a college somewhere, and he was talking about like I get these samples back, and they're like, "You did your big reveal on page 18, but you got 5 pages left. Like, don't you maybe want to save that for the end?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" Like,
No, the big lesson that I learned from issue 2 that has been fascinating is just that montage in a comic book is not the same. Like I think of it like I was like I wrote a montage and I was like, okay, we'll do all these interesting images and the time will it'll show the passage of time, and I'm like, no, in a comic book you're just like boom boom next page, and I was like, oh, once I kind of saw it I was like, this is not conveying the passage of time. I was like, oh no. Like, it was montage works different in movies, like, and it's just obvious things like that we're constantly learning. I was like, okay, well, we got to rework that now. But and so it's just and so there are lots of lessons that even as a lifelong reader, I'm just, then I dive back in and I'm like, how did everybody else do this? Like, it is fun to work on something and then go back and reread everything and have a new appreciation and just really dissect everything. Because, I mean,
I think you can see the work that these writers and artists put into it, and not just read it for the fun adventure of Green Lantern or something. You can go in it with an analytical mind a lot more so, and I think you appreciate it a lot more.
Sure.
And then also realize that maybe there's a lot of stuff on the shelves that aren't up to those standards that you now hold.
They're just like musicians, they appreciate music in a whole different way than just us listening to it, if you play. So it's probably just like that is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
There's entire comic book like labels that I know. I'm like, well, if this person can print something, maybe I can someday create a comic book too.
Oh yeah, exactly.
There's stuff right here. Probably we're looking at that is like, if they could do this, why not?
I'm not gonna like.
But there's also lots of great stuff.
Of course, yes.
I'm just saying, like, there's entire
Aquaman, really?
There's entire labels that are just like, like really underground indie kind of stuff. They're basically shipping stuff out of some guy's garage or whatever. And it is cool. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but sometimes, as a fan, as a critical person, you look at that and you think, I could probably do this too. And
well, I think that kind of brings up a point that our story is, and then people like that. So I've been doing some covers for like the garage publishers, I guess is what you're talking about, and then seeing their work, and you're like, oh, I could make something like this.
I'm also not talking shit about them. Like,
No.
Speaking in generalization, some of them are really great.
No, I like doing covers for them, so I will always do it. But it's it was explained to me by an editor and producer of one of these guys that he specializes in entertainment comics. He is not wanting he wants a big boobied, adventure, and then it's got the expected roller coaster, right? And that's what his fans want, and that's what he produces, and he's successful at it, right? And then I talked to him about like our comic, which has this huge overarching metaphor of living with grief, of understanding grief, getting over grief. The amount of effort Andrew put into the stories and the metaphors and the eventual double meanings that so many things will have as things kind of continue is light years above what is an entertainment comic, right? And most comics, are entertainment, but there's some comics that are like really heavy and they just hit like there's Carmen by Guillaume March. I'm gonna say it's an Italian guy.
Gillum. Yep.
Gillum, that's a name. That is specifically about like suicide, right? Super heavy book, right? And then kind of goes through all about the what ifs of suicide. And so we wanted to have a heavy thing, but also not take away from the entertainment part. And that's where we're hoping that our comic lands, and what's going to be able to reach to someone who can produce this to a larger scale. That this is a book that it means a lot.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of heavy things for it. And I would say probably one of my I would akin this to a Tarsem Singh movie that came out in 2009, which was The Fall. Sure, near The Fall.
I remember it. I don't think I've ever actually seen it.
That I would say for me, that was the movie that made me go, I want to make a book, because I'm an artist. I want to make something like this.
Yeah.
It is
the guy who made The Cell.
He made The Cell, yeah. So he did The Fall.
Underrated movie. I love The Cell.
Oh yeah.
Everything he does is very like painterly.
Yep.
Immortals. He did a
surreal.
Wizard of Oz thing. He's done like 5 in the past 20 years.
I
But
wish he had more movies under his belt. He's
visually he's one of the most stunning.
So The Fall, I'd highly recommend, because it's got like these 5 characters, and they're representative of different items, and then there's a real world story with Lee Pace, right? And he's kind of telling a story and then using people in his life as characters. So you see them as real life people, and then you see them as a character in the story. And I think that was, and this is 2009, this is right, or 2008, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And this is right when we're developing the idea for this story. And yep, that's the one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Highly recommend. I did pay $40 for a DVD of that.
Yeah.
Those things
What
are
the fuck?
It's a hard to find.
It's
DVD.
a hard to find movie.
It's a collector DVD.
And
You mentioned another movie to me the other day, and I couldn't find it either. And I probably gotta get online. It's a horror movie or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
so
This
so
is
that
the third time I've had a conversation like this today about a movie that I can't find on DVD. Like
I don't even
bullshit.
think it's on Amazon either. It's
no, I had
it
to buy
may
it.
it may have come out on Amazon recently. I think where you can
It
like,
was at
rent
one
it.
point, but they change
Right.
it all the time.
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
Yes, very.
But that heavy book, right? Or it's a heavy story. It's got some, and that's also about like it's also got grief and stuff in there. And so I think that was a really big inspiration that we were going to have these characters that personified something larger than they were. So you have denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And Andrew's done a really good job on writing the story so that way acceptance doesn't feel like it was just cashed in. And that's we'll get there
Right.
eventually, but he did a really good job because in the beginning, you kind of like it's like you think you know who it's going to be, the whole time, and so
You don't
what? Well, just like it's,
don't give away the whole.
I'm not giving it away. I'm just saying that you've done a good job.
Yeah.
you
No,
know.
but
Just
so
don't watch this in 3 years whenever we finish.
I knew it the whole time.
right. Yeah.
I called it.
But that was a big inspiration for the book. We've come back to like the Don Bluth movies, like, and just being very aware of storytelling while we're telling a story is something that is very fun for us. I mean, I've always been drawn for that. Like the opening scene, our narrator is a fun character, who like
Yeah, he's
we're
my
just gonna
character.
have so much fun with.
My character.
But yeah,
The Wish Catcher.
Yep.
Okay, because I was gonna ask what was his name or what is he?
Yeah.
Or I don't even
Well,
know.
it's my reward of doing 12 issues of this is that Andrew's going to write a one-off that we explain that character because he's not really explained at all.
Okay.
Y'all also just real fast want to give shout out to your variant cover here.
Yeah, that's Martin Simmons of Department of Truth fame and Dying is Easy. I think that was one of his first ones, and then Dracula. So yeah, he's been doing great stuff.
How'd that come to be?
Oh, are we gonna? Okay, we'll segue.
Let's segue a little
We'll
bit.
segue a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, we talked about story enough. Andrew chided me.
Well, I was going to say before we jump into that, I just wanted to tack on to something that you said real
Right.
fast when you were talking about like Don Bluth movies and stuff like
Yep.
that. Something that I found to be really interesting, or I don't know, something that I really enjoyed about the book was it does have some heavy themes, but in looking at the art style and the color palette and the way that the story is unfolding, it did seem to me like something that could be also easily have an appeal to younger readers.
So
And I was trying to find a more broad example of something that introduces like concept, emotional story points, but with main characters that are kids, or maybe trying to like things that we watched growing up that actually had some pretty complicated subject matter, but were presented in a way that was understandable to a
Yeah,
younger audience. Like
Exactly.
I mean, even something like E.T., where I mean, it's never outright said that his dad left his family, but they drop these little hints. These kids are dealing with an odd, complicated thing in their lives, magical alien being,
Yeah.
changes everything for everybody. Or fucking dude, Five Goes West is a
Yep.
sad movie.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So
This sounds fun.
yeah, no, I like all those. Like I'm a Spielberg baby myself, so
Yeah.
it was like all those things were very influential as far as. And so I mean, my father passed a few years back, and that has really kind of refocused my kind of how I want to present this book.
Uh-huh.
And so it was watching my older brother talk to my 7-year-old nephew at the time, and watching him explain what was happening and everything. That scared the hell out of me, and I was like, oh, I don't have children of my own, and but that was once I started really refocusing and really understanding the gravity and the power that this book could have, because it is geared towards children. It's meant to be for children as well as adults who love nostalgic things and Muppet movies and all these types of that era.
Yeah,
we're
But-
sitting in a comic book store right
Exactly. I mean, you guys are my people. Like,
that's right.
but and so we've really kind of refocused it in a way that we want this to be a tool that parents can also use to have conversations with children and kind of and give them an access point, and just to have those types of conversations. I'm not a psychiatrist or anything, or probably even qualified to speak on much of this, but I mean, I can tell a story, and that's what we want to do, though. But like I just think about those stories that I heard when I was younger, and that like taught me how to deal with certain emotions and all of that. And this
Yeah.
is a way of hopefully returning the favor. Just doing our due diligence.
I would think that from what you told me of the people who read this before we actually debuted it, were people that were going through a grief stage and read this, and like I gave this to a client and she gave it back crying, because it was just like it hit whatever Andrew
right.
wrote.
No,
it really hit the nail on the head.
there's a very real moment I think in this first issue where the father fails the son. And as far as like, and that's you see it right there and you're like, oh man. And that was so I've got a good buddy who's got a 3-year-old daughter now, and his mother-in-law just passed, and they've been racking their brains, and they saw that moment and they were just moved to tears because they're like, yep, we definitely know we failed a couple of times or something here recently, and every parent does that. And it's just, and that's, kind of some of the things that we're exploring in this book.
Redemption.
Right.
There'll be redemption for it. So.
Excuse me. A lot of the things that we watched growing up, it introduced complicated subject matter, but it was packaged in a way that was easily understandable for kids, but sometimes even in a way that I didn't know that.
Right.
And growing up, like being introduced to those concepts, those, scenarios and stuff like that, like you don't even realize that even having like some sort of entertainment that touches on those, like kind of gives you tools later on to maybe understand.
Yeah, it gives you tools and language, like just to understanding what these things are and exploring it. Like, I mean, there's going to be a villain at some point that's introduced, and we made a very conscious effort. I was like, I want a scary villain. Yeah. I was like, in the age of Pixar movies where every villain is misunderstood, everybody in like kids movies these days are just, everybody's misunderstood. And I was like, and that's whatever. I'm not gonna shit on all of that, but I like a scary villain. I liked being scared as a child.
When we get to him, it's gonna be
fun.
It's gonna be good. Can I say it's
we can off the record.
Okay.
We'll
I'll just. It's nothing. It's nothing. I can say this. Trichtophobia.
Okay.
It's the fear of holes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's going to be a part of it, and I think that is.
That's a good tease.
I think that's a good tease.
That was a big inspiration for one of our villains.
Yeah. For the trichtophobia, I think it's going to be something that it is opposite of what we showed in the first few issues. It's going to be. We want that darkness, from. Was it the Great Mouse Detective, right?
Yeah.
When Ratigan.
Oh my God.
All dogs go, and all dogs go to heaven. They go to hell at the end of that movie.
It's true. It gets scary.
The Great Mouse, and you just talked about like having a good villain like Ratigan and the Great Mouse Detective.
Oh
like,
yeah.
You're like, oh Jesus Christ.
He is not misunderstood.
No.
He is a shitbag.
He's a shitbag.
Yeah.
The Nightmare King, I think, in Little Nemo and the Adventures of Slumberland.
Oh my God,
scared the shit out of me. I mean,
another big influence.
Sick ref.
Is Little Nemo.
Including my brother, I think I've met 5 people that have seen that movie.
I mean, this
was a fever dream for most.
Yeah.
They're like, that wasn't real.
I thought I made it up for the longest time. I was like, what was the name of that thing?
It doesn't quite hold up like I wanted it to. I revisited it about 5 years ago.
There's a problematic character.
Oh yeah.
He was there from the beginning. I know what you're talking about, and
but
that's Winsor McKay. So
yeah, I mean it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 1904.
Hey.
Okay.
Wow. It was the 90s.
Guys, wake up! It's the 90s. Yeah. Okay. We got to do better.
Easy.
Yeah. So we look forward to the depth of our story.
Well, you admit like we were kind of throwing some shade on some of these like indie publishers, but in the same way, what? In the same, you said you were talking to somebody who makes something that is like I make entertainment, and you were talking about wanting to do something that was a little bit headier, maybe a little bit more has depth to it, but not at the expense of it still being entertaining. And,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, what else? What else is a good comic book? I mean, that's what you strive for.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I read like Alan Moore's Promethea, and that's it is so heavy. He goes through the entire Kabbalah system. Do you know how hard that is to do in a comic book? I read it and I was like, I have a rough idea what happened. Something with Aleister Crowley and magic and something. I don't know. It was crazy. We didn't really go that far. That was a bit heavy.
I don't want to put words in anybody else's mouth, but I think I speak for the audience when I ask. Issue 3, is that when we get to the big fat jugs in the comic?
The entertainment part.
I mean, even in the first issue, the mom I drew is stick thin. Like I was like, I didn't even put a hint in any.
There's nothing
There's
tantalizing
nothing,
in this book.
She is pissed off for many reasons, you know.
There's no, she's aware of her creator, and there are no Pixar moms in this book.
It's just Veggie Tales, really. That's all we're going for.
Well, that said, there are a couple panels in issue 2 where we've been eyeballing. We're like, hopefully nobody picks that up.
Yes.
I'll show the guys, and then maybe we can. I don't know
We'll
if you want to show this on the podcast or anything, but this one's fixed. But it was yeah.
As long, anything that y'all would feel comfortable sharing on screen that wouldn't be a spoiler, I could. If you'll send me a file, I can throw it out there.
Well, I mean,
You don't have the. This
this is the new one. You have the one that
We did have to change the panel layout.
So there's a bit of a gushing box.
I see that.
Is it? Yeah.
I don't get
You're
it.
saying that.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah. So, but I think it's fine. I think it's not like a euphemism in a joke. It's. Are we seeing it? We're right there. So.
So you know, kind of.
But and then these panels over here were initially very phallic shaped. He was like, he did 4 like blocks, and then it was a D-shaped panel, and there's a watermark coming out at the end.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, sir,
I didn't.
you have taken it too far.
Tone it down a little bit.
I don't know what's on your
Sir,
subconscious brain now.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
It was pretty.
We're not trying to do anything like subversive stuff in
No,
there,
no.
you know.
These were just funny accidents. I was like, man,
Yeah.
I guess
It's
you
not
know.
the Little Mermaid boner or anything
Yeah.
like that, you know.
Well, I mean, and I know we have a couple other topics we'd like to get to. Especially, I would very much like to talk about the variant cover. But
Yeah.
we have so many more stories still. This
Yeah,
is
it's funny.
yeah.
there's and I know it could be frustrating or sometimes off-putting to have comparisons to your artwork, but we were just talking about kids' movies and stuff like that, and you know the storyline kind of dealing with like I don't know if it's like dimensional, but crossing from one place to another.
Mhm.
There was something about it, and especially with some of the character models that really reminded me a lot of like Henry Selick, who did Coraline. And
Oh,
Jane
yeah,
and
yeah,
Giant
yeah,
Peach
yeah,
and-
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
Yes, yes.
Nightmare Before Christmas, but that's all like Tim Burton and
Nope.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah, that is right. You're picking up on all the things. Like, that James and the Giant Peach we've talked about.
Well, I think the art style, you can see the art style's changed, and I guess we'll show examples of what the issue 1 is, and then we can do a teaser of
and
issue
you'll
2.
have
But
to remind me what's this guy's name?
so we have to remember why we called him this Bevel. It's
Bevel.
It's the adventures of Logan and Bevel. So Logan is obviously our child protagonist, and then Bevel is going to be, I've been explaining people as his like Jiminy Cricket, I think. I don't
Yeah,
know if
but
that's
the friendly giant thing was giving me some
Yeah.
like labyrinth vibes and
Yep.
stuff like that, especially
Yep.
the teeth and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
he's
there's-
got like a little bit of imposing nature, but also I made him. I didn't want to do like crazy, crazy.
Hoggle, yes.
Yeah, I don't
Christine's gonna be so upset that I didn't.
Oh, okay.
We've got a house full of labyrinth stuff.
Ludo.
We kinda
Hoggle.
made him into
Hoggle's
like
the
a-
little guy. Ludo's
Oh,
the,
Hoggle's the little dude.
Yeah, Ludo's
Ludo.
I suck
Thank
too.
you.
Son of
It's
a
okay.
bitch.
okay.
He kind of has like
I
a
got there.
like a peasant workman vibe. A
Yeah.
little bit.
I called him Samwise the Hulk.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
He,
That
he-
was,
he- he's wearing like work pants, you know,
Uh-huh.
and he's got his like work shirt on that has like the little open thing right
Yeah.
there. Because our other characters are going to be like super flamboyant, and like our narrator is flamboyant, and we'll have other people. So I think that kind of gave him a little bit of a grounding.
Well, yeah, I
maybe a
mean,
little bit.
Yeah.
he's got like a friendly, like rounded,
Right.
design to him.
I mean,
You know,
and there
this guy's a little stinker. I mean, you just
Yeah.
look at his face,
Oh,
and you're
yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah.
he's up to no good.
Oh,
yeah, he is. Yeah, that is the wish catcher. So
He-
we'll
he-
get background on him.
Yeah, he's
Eventually.
gonna be a very that was a very fun idea when it happened because it opens up having him as our narrator, being an unreliable narrator. We can play with the form and like call attention to so many things.
I think that's when the story. I would say it's probably when the story finally started taking shape. Back when we were first coming together, as I painted him in college.
a much different version.
Much
that's in the
different
book.
version, and it was only it was just like it was like my take of like if I made my own folklore, right? And so the wish catcher is basically the guy who sits on the moon and then steals your wishes before they come true when you wish upon a star.
Okay.
So like
Wow.
he has a bag full of wishes.
Yeah.
And then so I have a story I want to do after this whole thing's done that kind of gives context because we never explained this. This is all like background stuff that only we know.
Yeah.
But I've always liked the idea of like
Cool idea.
so that's a misunderstood villain. I would say he's just trying to do something and then he's stealing a whole bunch of wishes. But then making him so that's what I brought into the story is like what if we had this guy, and I think that's when Andrew's creativity just like skyrocketed, that we were able to be like, oh my gosh, this is everything
Let's go with this.
yeah we wanted to go with. So we can just keep going for years and years on this. So
No, it's this is exactly what I think people want to hear, because I mean, we've had some other creators on the show, and we, with their storied careers, it's we going through their biography really, but y'all giving us the insight of like talking about your creative process in a much more in-depth way is something that I was very interested in to have you guys on.
oh great.
And I think that this is unique in the sense that y'all are kind of like in the middle of, starting something up.
Yeah.
You're at the front of your creative journey, not just in this book, but I think,
Yeah, I think and then we can probably segue a little bit into the networking part of stuff.
Yeah, which is I think is a good opportunity to talk about your variant cover.
Yeah. So I'm a tattooer by trade. I've been doing I draw on Sharpies of people, and people give me money, and I can pay for stuff.
That was nice.
And,
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah. So very thankful for it, and then that I have the reputation and career I have, and so because I have a skill set that other people want, I was able to parlay that into basically getting one-on-one time with artists that I would never have otherwise. And Andrew and I have been in positions that we would never have had otherwise if we were just fanboys or if we just wanted to make comics,
Yeah.
And we were able to. Let's see. So it starts off with 22. In 22, we finally get this going. Get the first rough draft. I meet Tony Harris in the summer of 22. Tony Harris was the artist of my favorite childhood comic, which was Starman, which is not really like a children's comic to begin with, but I loved it as a kid, and so we met because he started doing cons again, and we have a couple similarities.
What are some other projects that Tony Harris has worked on?
Ex Machina.
Ex Machina.
Okay.
Yep.
Those are his two.
Yeah.
He's got his two big ones, and then he's had a couple things here and there, and he's having I'm really proud of him. He's having a resurgence in his career, and is doing a lot of cool stuff that I don't think I can talk about. But it's cool because I get to be a part of it. So
Very cool.
We'll look forward to that in the next year, I think. And so I met Tony at the Dallas Fan Expo. We had a few similarities that lined up, and also I offered a free tattoo, which was like a really. That's what we learned. It's like the easiest sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
And then
think
I
so.
bought something from him.
Yeah, this.
And it's like the twofer of those things.
He came back from this con and he said, "Hey, I've got this opportunity. We're gonna go tattoo like Tony Harris." And he's like, "Do you want to come with me to Georgia and tattoo Tony?" I was like, "What?" and this is truly Scott Prather like stuff that I don't understand. Skill sets that he was just like he has introduced a philosophy into my life that I now hold dear. It's just the worst anybody can tell you is no. Like
Yeah,
as
sure.
long as like you know. Yeah, I was like, so once you just get over that, you're like, okay. And so he's taught me to put myself out there in ways that I normally wouldn't do.
Yeah.
I'm just I don't want to bother that person. You know that's an
Oh, I'm gonna
inconvenience.
go
that-
straight up.
yeah, and Scott will just hound whoever.
I'm gonna go ruin this guy's day. Right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Right now.
My wife and I are very similar. We are whirlwinds.
yeah.
And we have definitely ruined some people's days. And so, but I've always been someone that can just pick myself up and go, I did not mean that. Let's keep going. But I just want to point out the similarities, which I think is what led to this. So Tony married his wife Becky in the same month and year as I married my wife Becky, which was October of 20. So that's very similar. I was about 1.5 years sober at this point, and he was about 8 months sober. And I think these two similarities, along with buying a commission from him and then offering a free tattoo, but it was like those, and then his wife Becky was there along with my wife Becky. So the two Beckys were ba-da-ba-da-ba, like instantly there. And I think that just was like, it immediately established a bit of trust.
There's a sitcom in this. Like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so and Tony reminds me very much of my tattoo mentor. And I told Tony this to his face, and then Andrew pointed out that probably wasn't the best idea. But I was like, you remind me of my my like grumpy mentor or
Oh,
something.
curmudgeon was the
My
word.
curmudgeon of a mentor.
I was like,
And so basically calling Tony that, but I don't think he does or would take offense to that.
I love
and,
your work. You're an old grumpy piece of shit.
Yeah, I've worked with you before, just in a different life. I know this energy very well. So Andrew and I went out there. And it's because Andrew is really good at talking, because if I'm working, I don't talk as much. So we were in Georgia for 3 nights, and we spent a whole night with the Harris family before we started tattooing. Then we got to go to his studio, which is about as big as my house, just his art studio.
Wow.
It was crazy. And then I spent 2 days in his studio tattooing his wife, Becky, and then the next day tattooing him. And throughout that, there's 22 hours of one-on-one time, a very personal one-on-one time. And
yeah. So when he's focusing on actually doing the tattooing, I'm just there to entertain and keep the conversation going. But it's proven to be an interesting opportunity. Just it was like you can make small talk, but then I was like, well, let's talk about comics here for a bit.
Yeah, we're here.
And I was like, I'm gonna pick your brain here because we're working on something. And so, but he was able to provide all sorts of insight that was just invaluable.
Yeah.
And
he's a 30-year veteran of the industry.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, he is someone that's like, how do you get into comics? He was like, I was 19 and just did it.
Yeah.
So it's not really
he's got
viable.
had all the stories you'd ever want to hear. Was just incredible.
It was, I think it was, and it was a big honor because he was like, I don't let people in my studio. Because if you know anything about artists, they do not let people inside their brain. Their studio is a manifestation of how they think. And so it's a very personal environment to be in. And so just to be able to go and like live in his studio for 2 days while I worked, which was so interesting. And then he would just be he would just be pulling out artwork. He would just be pulling out sketchbooks and just stuff that like you never know he did, or his friends, Tim Bradstreet and Mike Allred, and just like these
God.
giant names,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it was
like
No, I'm a Mike Allred
oh
fanatic.
it was so
lunatic.
it was so
about his
crazy
work.
just to, and then so that was our first doing it,
Right. And so then we took that like kind of that whole mentality of the worst anybody can say is no, and now he was just, people apparently want tattoos, which is cool. So then we just started going to the cons and just kind of would go up to different artists and just start chatting with them. And then, by the way, he's a tattoo artist. If you ever want a tattoo, just let us know. People looked at us
and buying artwork.
Yeah, and purchasing artwork also helps.
Yeah.
Kind
like
of.
that.
Once they're
listen
like,
a little bit
okay, all right, you're not just complete weirdos, all right. All right. Like, we've definitely gotten our fair share of like odd glances and like, what's going on here now? Because he's like, but
Mitch Gerard's, I'm trying to him. He laughed and shrugged, and I was like, okay, well, I'll come around.
Yeah.
I'll get you next time.
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
But Prather is also friends with one of the people that works for the Scott's Collectible group that Martin is part of.
Yeah.
So he kind of helped grease the wheels a little bit, and then
Very much so.
and Martin was able. Then Martin agreed, and so we met up with him in Austin at a convention down there, and ended up tattooing him very late at night. But it was very funny because he caught on very quickly what we were doing. He's like, oh yeah, let's just hang out. And then I started asking questions. He's like, oh, I see what you're doing. He's like, you have me captive.
Yeah,
he's like,
go anywhere.
Audience.
And he's
You have these people held for hostage for like 6 hours at a time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's like, well,
now we're gonna.
Yeah.
How do you work?
I learned this from years of just dealing with my own clients, and then so I could just say whatever conspiracy theory that I think is true. It's like, we put in the water, right? And so you say it with enough confidence, people you're tattooing are just going to agree with you. They're like, yeah.
I thought it was just my tattoo artist who said weird shit like that.
It's like everyone. It's
I
like
know.
because you can just say anything. They're going to be sitting there for the next 7 hours.
Well, also, I mean, you're focusing, but also like you got to give yourself a little bit of breathing room. You kind of to entertain yourself, and
Yeah, but during those 8 hours, we you kind of form a little bit of a relationship, and and he was nice, and we all got along, and he was, and then he, I'm pretty sure he offered. He's like, well, if you guys ever need help with anything, and then
that was in that same year. And this is 23, so we tattooed Tony in 22. 23, we met Martin, and then Andrew went to San Diego and then met Ben Templesmith. And so Ben Templesmith is someone I've tattooed now and is a part of this whole fun adventure.
If you're familiar, what has Ben Tipplesmith worked on that people might be familiar with?
30,
most
30
famous
Days
one.
of Night is his,
Oh, yeah.
is his big
Okay.
one. He's
Yeah.
also got a book called Wormwood, and
And he's doing
He did
like
Fell,
a Squitter,
I think.
Squitter World.
Fell with Warren Ellis, I believe. Yeah.
I could be
think
wrong
so.
because I've emailed a lot of people and have gotten a lot of no responses. But also, I think I had a very brief communication with him for a little bit because I was looking for people to interview.
He's
and-
very easy to.
He's done
like-
covers
yeah,
too.
Yeah, he's a very personable guy.
Yeah,
he's great. I mean, it's been very eye opening that everybody in this industry that we've met so far has been fantastic and just happy to talk about comics. Like, I mean, I think it's just like we're sitting here. I would, whenever you meet a kindred spirit, there's not a lot of people out in the world who want to talk about comics. So
Yeah.
whenever you meet somebody, you're like, oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
It's
the
a whole
older-
different world.
Yeah, the older you get, you're like, anyone there?
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Is
There's
anyone
also I have found doing this, and we've had some people on the show that I've thought like I can't believe they're going to give us their time of day, and it's like they're doing it for free. It's not like they're really getting anything out of it other than the opportunity to talk about
Comics.
what they like and what
Yeah.
they've worked on. It's rare that people have worked in the industry and don't want to talk about it. We found one, but it doesn't happen a lot that they're not willing to, give you a little bit of insight, whether it be face value or, something that would be valuable to you guys as
Yeah.
creators and stuff like that.
And people like talking about themselves.
But and everything, and they were.
That's why I started a podcast.
I think they all recognized, I think that, we're trying to do something and we don't know all the ins and outs of it and we're trying to figure it out. And I think that every one of them has a story that they've told us about somebody that opened a door or helped them out. And they're just doing a lot of returning that favor. I don't think anybody's trying to gatekeep because I don't think there's not a lot of money in this industry. I don't believe so. Unless
you got
you're
the
like
top
4 people. Yeah, unless you're like
2%.
5 people.
Yeah, those
I
are the
don't
ones
think
that-
you're making a lot of money doing this.
as much as I love comics, I'm keeping my day job.
So yeah,
Until
I think this is a passion project for a lot of people, and
Yeah.
people do this because they love this medium.
yeah.
And it, like you were talking about, like some of the things that y'all put into the story writing, and I mean, it gives you the opportunity. You were telling me that one of your clients was moved to tears by it, and that's really cool that you got to see that, like, kind of in real time.
Yeah.
You got to witness that reaction. But I mean, I guess the hope or the dream is that you're able to make something that connects with people. That comes from a genuine place, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the people we've told the story, because again, it's not like a fully entertainment comic. It's got some depth to it, and that we're not desperate to get into comics. I think that also because these guys also talk about people that they've known for a long time that are like desperate to get into comics.
Yeah.
And just like any relationship, if you feel someone's desperate, it's a big turnoff. And so we're not desperate. This is something we're doing for fun.
Yeah, we started doing it, and then we kind of got so far into the process. We're like, well, if we're gonna do this and we're gonna do it, we might as well try to do it right, and
Yeah.
and maybe try to do it. All I ever wanted was just to have a book on my shelf that I had made, and that would be a dream come true. Now, but then but if we're doing it, we should try to get it out there, try to get it in front of people, see if people like it, and just see what happens, because you never know.
I think the networking, when I think the tattooing and then talking to these people, it opened up the idea that, man, this could actually be on shelves. We could actually network our way into putting this book on shelves.
I also think I think it's good.
Oh, yeah.
I'm proud of it.
Yeah. And
like-
it's great. So
Yeah.
that also helps.
I mean, anything worth doing is worth doing right.
Yeah.
So we've put a lot of work into
But
it.
put a lot of work. So I think that's been a really fun process, and I think people see I guess being genuine, is that a good way to say it?
Yeah.
We feel like it's a very genuine book, and people get the vibe that we are genuinely excited to do this and want to be here and
Tell this story.
and tell this story. And from what we've been told, that has more merit than like I want to draw Spider-Man, and because there's so many styles of art out there, right? So now I feel like with our second issue coming out, I'm like, man, I feel like my style has some marketability. I think I could,
so.
I don't think it's a Spider-Man book, but like I think adventure and magical fantasy stuff could be a place where my style fits, and it's not where I thought I would be by doing artwork, but if that's where I land, like how cool would that be?
I mean, I've always loved. I've always loved your work, and it is you do have a very unique style that anything that I've ever scrolled through, I'm like, yep, that's Scott Prather right there.
Yeah.
Your artwork is very recognizable. And I do think that's a benefit, and it's just a testament to your talent.
Well, this is, I will say that with the art style, that this is, I've been heavily referenced for so long in my time of not only tattooing, but making illustrations and stuff before then. I'd use reference all the time for everything. And so my goal in making this was like, I'm not going to use reference. I'm going to use the theories that I know and then just stylize what I can. I am using a reference in our third issue because we have a big boat, and that's just horrible to draw. But even inside of that, it's like super stylized, and it feels genuine. I'm not trying to be like someone else, and that's what happened when I threw away 17 pages because I had just gotten some Matteo Scalera artwork, and I was like, I want to be Matteo Scalera, and then I did scratchiness and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, oh, I am not Matteo Scalera. I don't know if you knew this or not, but apparently that took decades of him to get to that point. So then we get to the style that we see now, and it feels like chunky. I think it's good. They're chunky and wonky.
I think that's a good description.
And bold, and just like my tattoos are real bold, so I feel at home, and that's what makes me more excited about continuing this project because the second issue was easier. The third issue, albeit longer, is also going to be a hair easier. So by the time we're done, I'm going to feel like I can actually do this for like big boy money.
Yeah, and we've just found our flow a lot better.
Yeah,
I mean it is just all the work, all the hard work that we put into this is now paying off because our processes are there. We did this. So, I mean, and we're still fine tuning it, but we did, like I said, we were talking about earlier, we did those thumbnails. Then I reevaluate the script. He comes back with some roughs. Then we go back. Then we've introduced another process and included our letterer in that process now to make sure we've got enough room for the bubbles.
I'm not drawn for bubbles.
Yeah, that was a big that was a big hurdle. And
apparently you got to put bubbles somewhere.
Yeah,
there you go.
And so we make sure that the word balloons will fit everywhere they need to fit, and then he can go into the finals, and then.
Yeah. And then a lot more ping pong.
But that was just because we went straight to finals, and we're like, now where do the word balloons go? Oh no, that was a big hurdle, and like, all right, I've got to rewrite, I've got to shorten this blurb now,
just force it.
Yeah,
just
and
put
so
it in the corner.
I've got and we're constantly rewriting the script as well. Like, I mean, and that's been it's fun because he'll come up with a drawing, and I'm like, well, that's a different emotion. Now what? Now let me write. So you rewrite the dialogue differently, once the finals are in.
Well, that's easier than me redrawing.
Right. But it's like
you're going to change.
But it also inspires a different kind of thing. It's like, oh, you drew this, or it brings out something else, and so it's just constantly reworking it, because and that's the thing. Like, I think we're not married to the first initial script, so because it's an evolving thing. It's an evolving piece of work. So that would be another great tip for anybody who's writing is don't get too hung up on what your script says, and don't there's a lot of people who would say the script is God or whatever that, and we don't really apply to that. It's like, okay, because during that thumbnail stage, he's like, well, I think we could use an extra panel here for this motion. I'm like, great, that changes this, and then we can rework it. And so the script is constantly evolving while the art is coming to life. And then once you have that final product, you're just, like, okay, now let's retweak everything. And then.
Yeah, I think flexibility, if someone's watching this and thinking about, or in the very beginning stages, I think flexibility, but with a strong bones, I guess, right? Because just like Andrew wrote, had a good bones, but we're able to flex with it, and I think that was the biggest thing. And probably like if you're trying to think of doing comics, right, and then developing a relationship with a creative person is so big. Just like I've done it with the comic book artists that have done our covers, or will be doing some more stuff for us. That has been so helpful, and I'll even touch in with our colorist too.
Actually, yeah, I do. I want to touch on this real quick.
We should say his name.
Yeah, Michael Woods.
Michael Woods.
Okay. He's a fantastic colorist.
This guy made it a comic. I'm gonna say it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, but I want to sell this for, again, anybody who's creatively. So we went through 3 different colorists, two different colorists before we landed on our final colorist here. So the first colorist led us on to it was kind of a horror story, but I'm not going to talk too much. Second artist we found didn't quite work out. It was just he didn't quite get the tone of the book. It wasn't the right fit. He was a great colorist, it was just not the right fit. And so that was a big roadblock for us, and because I was just like, how?
That was like 7 months.
Yeah, we were like
Yeah.
7 months into this, and we were just, I don't know what to do. What are we gonna do? And there was there's a Facebook group called Connecting Comic Book Writers and Artists. It's got like 40,000 people in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I wouldn't have even thought about that.
I literally made a
That's where a
post.
lot of stuff happens.
So made a post in this Facebook group, and I said, hey, we are working on a book. These are I put some references. I was like, these are the type of colors we're looking for. This is the type of color work, this is the project, a little bit about it. Literally probably got 1,000 portfolioes.
Shit.
Wow.
And it was like, and within
people are
within
hungry.
2 days,
Yeah.
like, so if you're and there's incredible artists out there too. I mean, obviously a lot of
$40 a page.
a lot of varying skill. So I whittled through about 1,000 portfolios and came back with maybe like 10 prospects that I felt like really strong about. And we reached out to this Michael, and he came back to us, and we gave him a few trial pages, and he totally got it right out the gate. He's been so professional, such a joy to work with. And he's a Houston, Texas boy, so
Yeah.
that also
That's
helped.
cool.
Yeah,
He's
but-
colored the stuff I've done since our issue that I've made. I've done like some prints. He's colored everything,
Dang.
and so because
Yeah.
I just pay him some money, and then like half the work is done, and I'm
great.
like, I get it back. I'm like, oh, it feels great.
it's a fuzzy feeling.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the best. The stickers I got for you guys are colored by Michael.
Hell
and
yeah.
So,
Yeah, but-
so if you didn't know about that page, I mean,
I did not.
it is
Yeah.
a wealth of information, and people are hungry, and the styles are. There's so many people that have just these great styles that if I'm going to produce a comic, which I think about doing, like producing one, that I can go on there and find people to do eight-page bits, and a lot of them are very affordable. It's honestly, and that's honestly, I'm surprised
Yeah.
with the skill level of some of these guys and how affordable their pages are, comparatively to like $300 a page. That seems expensive.
Well, you had mentioned earlier, like the turn off of someone being desperate. I think there's a pretty fine line between like determination and desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I think a lot of
yeah.
people out there that have a skill set that they can back up are incredibly determined. Maybe not always disciplined. I have worked with many people who are creative.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't always come with discipline, but I think that comes with time too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you got to find your work method and stuff
Yeah.
like that,
If-
especially when you're collaborating, you're working
Yeah.
with someone else.
Yeah, is it going to be a hobby, or is it going to be a how you feed your family? I think that's where discipline, in my experience, comes in, because I've been a professional artist for 11 years, and if I wasn't disciplined at all, we wouldn't be in any of this situation, that or even get to go anywhere. So, that's a great point of desperation versus determination. I think is a really really fine line, and so I would say Michael is exactly the personification of that. When people throw ideas out, you put your hat in the ring, and your skill set will show through. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm really glad we know Michael, and hopefully one day we'll meet him. So
Yeah.
so far,
I mean, he might be AI. Who knows?
yeah,
Well,
he
shit.
can,
I mean,
he can write an email.
I mean, it is odd that we've been working with this guy now, and we've never met him. It is kind of funny. But
yeah.
How many bicycles do you see in this picture, Michael?
and,
But it's been another great part of this process, and again, just meeting people that are focused, and so I think that's been really fun as we're approaching 40 and getting into the funny books. It feels like it's very fun because it feels childlike, almost like we're fulfilling a childlike dream, and we get to make it happen, and it's not just happening around us. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I will say that our next artist that will be being our issue 2 cover will be Vanessa Del Rey, if you're familiar
She's
with
awesome.
Vanessa Del Rey. So she's done Red and Hit, Empty Man, and then has 2 titles out right now. Creeping Below with is that Brian Cavon?
Brian Azzarello.
Azrael, that's what it
No
was.
shit.
Yep. And then she's
Love
doing Exorcism at 1600. And it's I know it's close to us.
Right there.
Oh, it's right here.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be damned.
It's number 2.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
That's the art.
so Vanessa is actually an old schoolmate of mine. So I went to
So cool.
humble rag.
That's awesome.
I got to go to a school where their tagline is "No starving artist," and that is that's funny. That's funny.
That is a
but they're
tagline.
Kind of a tall order, dude.
Oh yeah, I know people on both sides of the glass there. But it's really cool to see people like Vanessa, and her goal was to make comics, and she is like
Killing it.
making comics.
Yeah.
You know?
Killing it.
She does some spicy stuff too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's done
Oh,
some
yeah.
spicy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Basic Instinct.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basic Instinct, right? And
Oh, yeah.
she's done I think.
Just the stuff she does as well. Just on her Instagram.
Oh, I
yeah.
have a painting. Oh, tangent a little bit. I have a painting I got from her. My wife hates it. So in my studio, there's
That means it's
two-
great.
I have 2 vibes. I have original comic book artwork that I started getting into, which is a horrible hobby. I would never recommend doing that. That is-
Expensive.
oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've sold stuff now to be like, oh, thank God, I got money again. And then the other vibe is erotic art, and so I had Vanessa paint me, and since it's a tattoo shop, it is X-rated. Paint me a girl posed. Based
With boobs, right?
yeah, with boobs.
Oh, nice.
And with legs
With
and-
lady bits.
and openness. And so I bought that, I don't know, like 7 years ago, and before she got more famous, thankfully, so it was a little bit cheaper. That now our cover is way more than what an original painting costs, which is I think pretty
That's
funny.
crazy.
Yeah, and so my wife actually just absolutely hates that painting. So, but I'm gonna have it.
I think a lot
That's
of
all I
people get like, I don't know, they feel like it's kind of sweaty to have like erotic art, but there's an artist. Her name is on Instagram. She goes by Amber Carr. I know that she's got a different name, but she does a lot of like pinup stuff. Some of it's pretty graphic, but
Yeah.
like devil girls and cowgirls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My wife and I actually have collected quite a bit of her stuff. I don't know. I like that kind of shit. I like pinups. I
A lot
like
of
the
people do.
history of erotic art and
The
just-
demographic we learned for Coffin Comics, the creators of Lady Death,
Yes.
is a 38-year-old male from Facebook surveys they did.
Oh yeah, that's.
And if you know anything about Coffin Comics and Lady Death, it's just tits.
Yeah. All day.
It is,
Tits all day.
It is tits.
That's been their bread and butter for some
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So it is 38-year-old males. That's what they were told to
Interesting.
us. Yeah.
I will.
It's down to a science.
That's what it was. They're like, just draw bigger tits. We'll make more money.
Can do.
Yeah.
Get me the eraser.
Circle. Touch the chin.
We have work to do, boys.
Oh man, doing research. That's the fun part.
My brother and I were walking through a convention about a couple years back, and we were both looking at each, and we stumbled across one of these kind of erotic booths or whatever, and my older brother, who's a little bit more maybe conservative than me, I guess, but he was
Very much more conservative.
he was just like, who would ever? I don't understand who buys this stuff, and I was like, I know who does.
Or you're sitting there like, yeah, this is
I was just like,
really offended right now.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, my whole art desk is naked anime girls.
Uh-huh.
And
Nice.
oh yeah, and they're so graphic.
That's where I draw the line.
Oh.
Now you've gone too far.
Okay. Who's printing these? That's what I want to know. Like, what sticker factory is like, oh, well, this is a wet one. You know? This is going to sell out for sure.
They're printing stickers and they're printing money.
Uh-huh.
That's a blank check for them.
It's the exact opposite vibes that our comic is, you know.
Yeah.
But one day I'll draw a boob. One day.
God, I'm just waiting. I'll be in the wrap. I'm just off to the sidelines.
Yeah.
waiting for
Why are they
boobs.
square? It's like-
You had one job.
I'm sorry, I love Minecraft. Oh my gosh, I love Minecraft.
It's a
Oh, I'm
8-bit.
sorry, you didn't play Tomb Raider. Like it's called homage.
Well, the
How
8-bit
young
tits.
are you? Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, it's been a great time. It's been a great time.
Well, you know what, guys? I really appreciate y'all coming on the show. This has been a lot of fun and
Oh, good,
very
thank you.
informative. I think people who read comics, and anybody out there who is watching or listening to this and has ambition to get into comics has quite a bit to pull from here. So
Cool.
it's
That's
been
great.
really exciting to hear you guys talk about it. But I also feel like we have barely scratched the surface. I feel like there's a lot more to get into. So whenever it works out, sometime we'd like to have you back on the show.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. Yeah, we can go more in depth. I think our stories with the artists is where things kind of get deeper.
Yeah, or or just we could talk more about the book. I don't know if we got into it too much, but yes, happy to come back.
Yeah,
I
we'd
mean,
love
we
to.
could also just shit around and talk about anything really, but it's been a cool hang, and I'm really happy that you guys gave us your time to come.
Yeah,
on the
of
show.
course.
It's been a lot of
Y'all
fun.
have a date for 2 yet or anything?
How
Issue
about
2.
that today?
Yeah, we are so by we're hoping to have it done by February, end of February. So I would be on the lookout probably early to mid-March for the Kickstarter to launch.
Yeah,
We'll do another
announce it
Yeah, maybe
on
if you,
Kickstarter end of February.
yeah, that's
Okay.
what we're aiming for right
Yeah.
now.
But Vanessa will by end of February. Vanessa will have the cover done for us, and then Michael will have the coloring done for us. So we'll have it kind of announced by then.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then we go into I guess a bit on that. Where issue 3 will come out in the summer. at
Yeah,
some
we're
point.
aiming for about a 4-month turnaround, which may be, and then the third issue is a little bit longer, so it may be a 5-month turnaround. But we're trying to do quarterly. I mean,
Okay.
it's we both have day jobs, so
Oh, yeah.
it's
Making it work.
It's a daunting thing to take on, and it's very ambitious.
Mhm.
I think that's we can't even ask. I mean, certain big publishers don't even meet those deadlines. So I
No.
mean,
Yeah.
I know you guys are working hard, and it's daunting, but it's
And-
impressive.
And if anybody who's listening actually wants to get a copy, you can reach us out on our socials there. Just DM us there. We're working on a website right now so that
One
we
day.
can take online orders, but we'll take Venmo and then we can ship it to you. Happy to do all that.
Yep.
If anybody wants to get a copy.
We'll get your socials and everything for
Yep.
the YouTube links, but for people listening on Spotify, where can they find you?
We are on Instagram at Hiraeth
Underscore.
_ Is it the comic?
Yeah, it's Hiraeth _ comic.
Yep. And then there is a Facebook group as well that should be the same.
Yeah, it's
Should've.
Hiraeth the comic.
Should have
It's,
prepped that.
Yeah, it's
Should have had that one in the barrel.
yeah. Hiraeth.
We put you on the spot. I know.
Uh-huh.
It was our fault. I know.
And we never actually explained why it's called Hiraeth.
I was about to say, yeah. Just
Yeah.
give us like a brief of what the story's about, and then
we should probably.
So
Yeah, we never did. We never did like a general overview.
general overview
Yeah.
of the comic. So Hiraeth is a word. It's a Welsh word with no. It's kind of described as the definitions in the first issue.
it is.
But it's a nostalgia for places that you can no longer return. And it was a word that I just fell in love with years ago. I saw it, and it was just a word that's always haunted me. I've always said it's my favorite word. And we went back and forth about what the title should be, and
Yeah.
for a while.
Perfect.
But and then we settled on that.
Motherfucker.
But it's very much so. It's a story about a young boy whose grandfather has passed, and
Sorry.
and he goes into a kind of an Alice in Wonderland world, and then explores the stages of grief and from there, and goes on a fantasy adventure. Is a loose way of explaining it.
Yeah, we
but-
probably should have started with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that we're an hour and 40 minutes in, I'm glad we finally got to talk about the comic book a little bit.
I'm glad we ended it with it. I think that's pretty strong end. Like it's really good.
Yep.
I was gonna say, Andrew, your words, the art, you have like artistry in your words, like especially in the beginning, like when you're just introducing everything.
Yeah.
Like, it just
Thank
you
you.
paint just a good picture of where it's going, how kind it's gonna be written,
Yeah.
and then just get into it. And I really enjoyed that, Scott. Your art, it's its own. Like you could tell, like he was saying, that is your work,
Thank
and that's what you need in comics. You need to have your own art. Otherwise, you're just like everyone else, and you'll be like another, Simmons or somebody. You don't want to be that. You want to be your own.
It's
and,
distinctive. Like
yeah.
it stands out.
Definitely.
Like this is this is something that would definitely pop on a shelf to me because it doesn't look like pretty much anything out right now, anything
Oh,
I've
cool.
seen. And I did make some comparisons earlier, just frame of reference, but I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that I would really be able to compare this to. There's something very unique about your art.
Oh, thank you very much.
And you had mentioned like boldness earlier. I do like the heavy lines. That's something that I really like to see in comic book art.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the story, it's not like you said, it's entertainment, but it also hits you hard, and that's pretty much what books need to be in order to even make it, even for people who want to pick it up, because you get a lot of people that come to the shop now and they're like, okay, I don't want superheroes, I just want a good story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't care, I just want a good story. So then, you know, we're able to give them something, and that this would be one that I would, just with the issue 1, this would be one that I would suggest just on that alone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
yeah,
and
it was
like-
really good.
It'll be in previews by the end of the year.
Hell yeah.
I manifest it.
Yeah, we're manifest right now.
Yeah.
I like my popcorn books. I like the stuff that's just
Right.
breezy and fun and colorful. But this is something that I can compare to a lot of things that I've read that I found to be like really touching and distinctive. You know what I mean? Like there is a lot of personality to it, and I think it. I think it's going to connect with people. I can't wait to see more of what you guys are doing, and
Thank you.
Where the story goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where the story goes.
Well, we're excited to get it out to people.
I ran out of words.
Yeah, no.
just
This, I mean, this.
couldn't figure out what I was trying to say.
This idea has been in our head for like 15 years. It's really, really rewarding to finally be able to share it with people.
And we will end every conversation with telling people how to pronounce the word.
Hiraeth.
Hiraeth?
Hiraeth. The pronunciation.
Here,
This
Hiraeth.
has been a
Hiraeth.
point of contention. I
Okay.
pronounced it incorrectly for years,
Oh man.
and then once we started doing this, I was like, I looked up the phonetics of it,
Yeah.
and I was like, ooh, I've been pronouncing this incorrectly.
Yeah, but
Hiraeth.
once it's locked in,
Yeah.
you
It's
don't want
hard.
to say it the right
Hiraeth.
way
Yeah,
after
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We're hoping it's like marketing, right? Where you're like, I don't know how to say that word, but I'll remember it.
I mean, it's meant
Yeah.
to be a mysterious title.
Yeah.
That does get people talking. It's like, wait, how do you say it?
Mhm.
Do you roll the R?
Hiraeth. Well,
Hiraeth.
I can do it if I don't
Hiraeth.
think about it.
Don't look at Scott and say,
That's a middle.
wow. I
It's
don't know what
here
that was.
in Ith.
Sound like
It's
spit.
like, yeah, that's what.
Hiraeth.
Yeah.
Hiraeth?
Hiraeth.
Hiraeth?
Yeah.
Hiraeth. Yeah, I kind of do it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just can't think
That's
about it.
some Middle Earth shit, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a bit.
it's a Welsh. Yeah, I don't know. It's Welsh. But yeah,
Well, again, guys, thank you so much for giving us your time and talking to us.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
This is totally enjoyable. We'll definitely come back
Yeah.
and jib jab more.
we are happy
We
to
would,
talk.
we'd
Yeah.
love to. And also, I don't know, keeping up with you guys. I want to come out and see the tattoo shop soon.
Yeah,
I've been
it's a
looking at it
room.
online. Do what?
It's just
Well,
a room.
Either way,
It
Yeah.
is very shocking.
yeah.
Scott, Instagram handle.
Prather Tattoos.
Prather Tattoos.
Yeah, pretty easy.
Andrew, Instagram handle.
J. Andrew Calvert.
Oh, and your other one,
Which one?
the Calvert's Collectibles.
Oh, Calvert's Collectibles, and then I've got
That's a good one.
I think it's Andrew Jectable Doodles. I've got a doodle page. I do doodles.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
do some portrait stuff.
I like his.
That was my COVID hobby.
He posted.
I
He
took-
posts all his books.
Yeah.
That's why I like his Calvert's Collectibles one.
Yeah, but I do I just post what I'm reading on another Instagram page.
Nice.
Well, kick
Yeah.
ass. Well, this has
Troy?
been a lot of fun, guys.
Troy, what's your handle?
The Matrix is a good movie. _ in between each word. I wanted to make it as hard as possible for people.
The Matrix is a good
Good
movie?
luck.
Yeah.
We'll talk all about that next time. I agree, but I just want to. That's just. We'll talk
That's
about
a
all
good
that.
movie.
Mike
Yeah.
the Lunatic, Instagram, and then Panel Boys with
Panel
a Z
Boys with a Z.
on Instagram.
Yeah. I don't know how to close this out, so
Panel
for watching.
Boys!
Exit music.
Stay hydrated.
oh yeah, stay hydrated.